Okay, I'm rich, but don't blame me for that. I made money the old-fashioned way. I inherited this. My company, DMI Industrial, was founded by my great-grandfather and several of his friends before my grandfather was born. Over the decades, the name changed as some partners were bought out and others were bought out. In fact, the original name of the company was Melvin, Dwaps, Bennett and Company. We were later joined by the Iovine family along with several other investors who were all tagged and Company. During World War II, a major scandal broke out and the Bennetts were kicked out of the company. My grandfather, Robert Dwaps, supported the company during those dangerous financial times by lending the company some of his personal fortune to help us get through some of the most difficult times. In exchange, he received more shares in the company and a larger stake in its management. The company name was changed to reflect this and the fact that we were a larger company. We became Dwaps, Melvin and Iovine Industrial. In the 90s, my father shortened the name to DMI Industrial because it was easier to pronounce and remember. Iovine suffered a series of setbacks over the past 20 years and eventually sold off most of its shares. My father was only too happy to buy it. As a result, the Dwaps family now controls 78% of the company's shares. The Melvins control approximately 18%, and the Iowans control the remaining 4%. Except for the fact that I make a ton of money, I'm just like you. I go to work every day and work hard. Like you, I have someone to answer to, our clients. They want more and more from us every year and always want discounts or lower prices. I have to constantly come up with ways to cut costs while maintaining the quality of the product, either the same for less money or better. At the same time, I have to answer to my employees who expect more money every year in the form of raises and bonuses, while at the same time they want more free time and more benefits. The two things that are killing me right now are unions and rising healthcare costs. In any case, this story is not about business. It's about my life and my marriage and how not long ago they both sucked. My name is Wayne. I'm 27 years old. I look pretty good and in shape. As mentioned earlier, I am financially secure and many expected me to be happily married. I was not. I had been married to Ada, whom our friends call AI for short, for about 4 years when problems began. The thing about AI, which is pronounced I, is that she is very beautiful and very charming. In fact, she is too beautiful and too charming for me. Like I said, other than the fact that I'm rich as hell, I'm a regular guy who goes to bars and hangs out with a lot of guys who work for me. I don't ride in a limousine like Thurston Howell Roman III. I drive a Mustang GT, and I don't sit around in suits eating caviar and drinking champagne. I spend most of my day in one restaurant or another in the factories that my company operates, and I'm usually in production to make sure everything is working well and that problems are being resolved. If I don't do this, I sit in the office and check on the people who work there. Anyway, AI was the most beautiful girl in town all through high school and college, and I don't think anyone expected the two of us to end up together. She was always the lover of some dashing young football player or something like that. I usually dated nice girls throughout school until midway through high school. During my last 2 years of high school, I didn't know Ada existed. She was there, and she was still beautiful and built like a brick yard. But when a man is in love, nothing else matters. And throughout the 11th and 12th grades, I was in love. The object of my affection was Maria Hess. She and Ada are very similar. Where Ada is taller and more magnificent, Maria was shorter and looked like a street child. Ada is blonde and tanned. Maria had very pale, very creamy Irish skin and some freckles. Her fiery red hair reached to the middle of her back and was naturally curly, whereas Ada's was straight. From the first day Maria came to our school, she hooked me. When she came up to me and said that the teacher told her to ask me to show her around, I was even more hooked. We had a short argument when she asked me what my name was. Wayne Dwaps, I said, smiling at her. When she burst out laughing and blushed with embarrassment, I almost walked away. She grabbed my hand and pulled me back. Her touch was electric, and I wasn't the only one who felt it. When she looked into my eyes to apologize, something special happened between us. That's when I noticed that she wasn't letting go of my hand. I took her around the school and showed her where everything was. We toured the cafeteria, the girls' locker room, the science labs, and all the other sites of the school. At the end of the excursion, I accompanied her to the next lesson and explained to the teacher what was happening. Mrs. Mertz, her English teacher, thanked me and even gave me a pass to the next class. As I turned to leave, Maria came up to me and whispered that I should come back to this room after class and help her find the cafeteria for lunch. I was puzzled because I had already shown her where it was, but I agreed. I met her in class and took her to the cafeteria. I usually sat with a group of my friends. We weren't the most popular kids in school, but we weren't avoided either. From the moment we entered the room, all eyes were on Maria. I sat down at the table, and she just stood near the chair next to me and looked at me. Most of my friends at the table were too stunned by her to notice. I quickly jumped up and pulled out the chair for her. Then she sat down and I introduced her to everyone at the table. Several girls offered to show her where all the things were in the girls' restroom, and she thanked them. Louise Jefferson offered to show her the places where most of us hung out after school. Maria just smiled and said that she had me for this. When she said this, several people raised their heads in shock. I think it was because at that time I usually dated girls as friends. I knew we were just in high school, and most of our relationships wouldn't last much longer. I thought it was stupid to be tied to someone you weren't going to break up with until after you graduated from high school. I went to most of the dances that were held at school with one friend or another. Unlike today, there was no pressure to have sex or anything like that. At the end of a good date, you'll get a kiss goodnight. At the end of a bad date, a friendly handshake awaits you. Louise Jefferson, Edith Bunker, and Maud Findlay were some of the girls I used to take to dances and often to movies or other events. Like me, they sometimes attended events with other people from our circle, but there weren't really any regular couples. Mary's presence seemed to disrupt the course of events from the very first day. Towards the end of lunch, we were all talking about a lot of different things when Paul stood up and walked over to our table from the jock table. He was followed by a couple of cheerleaders and headed straight towards Maria. "Hi, I'm Paul Fraley," he said. "Everyone calls me Ace." He extended his hand to Maria, and she shook it. Then I saw the end of it at our table. "Why do they call you that?" she asked. "Do you play cards or something? I always thought gambling was stupid." No," he said. "I play football and—" I saw all this in my imagination. Our team's quarterback was a guy named Jack Daniels. Jack, of course, was dating Ada, the most beautiful girl in our school. So Ace decided that he would take Maria. I guess it made sense in all this high school theory of hierarchy. "I hate football. It's boring," said Maria. "Are you taking steroids?" Why are you asking me this?" Ace said nervously. He put his hands in his pockets and looked for a way to escape. "I heard they increase your ego, but they decrease your brain and your manhood," Maria said. When she said this, she had the most angelic expression on her face. Ace turned red and became very angry. "Hey, Ace," I said. "You played a great game last weekend. We definitely would have lost if their defenders had gotten away from you after that interception. All it took after that was for our defense to hold them off for 2 plays and run out the clock. But if you didn't tackle the guy and he crossed the goal line, it would have been game over." Ace puffed out his chest and asked if I was coming to the game that weekend. "Of course," I said. "We are present at every game. We need to show some school spirit, right?" "That's right," he said. "See you later, Wayne. See you at the game." When he turned away, many things happened simultaneously. Ada, who heard this entire conversation, nodded her head and smiled at me. This was the first time the school princess did anything that let me know she knew I existed. Then a strange feeling came over me. At the same time, Maria noticed that Ada had noticed me, squeezed my hand almost hard enough to break the bones, and glared at her. When Ace and the cheerleaders returned to their table, several of our group stifled laughter. Maria couldn't have been more rude if she had planned it. This really started a trend among students at our school to respond to stupid or rude behavior by asking the person if they were on steroids. After lunch, we had a meeting in the assembly hall. It was Friday, and there was a game on Saturday, so most of the meeting was dedicated to the game. The director, Dr. Smith, stood up, said a few words, and made a few announcements about the weekend and upcoming events. He also introduced the new member of the student body and made her stand up so everyone could see her. He said that if she got lost or something, everyone would be able to recognize her and help her. He asked her where she was from and if she liked anything in our area. It was then that Maria showed her wicked sense of humor. She very modestly stood up and said that she really liked the weather in our area. Dr. Smith asked her what she liked here, since the summer had passed and it was cool and often damp. "I like Wayne," she said. "What do you like about the rain?" he asked. By this time, half the students were already laughing. "Nothing special," she said. "I love everything about Wayne Duaps." With a puzzled expression on his face, Dr. Smith introduced the football coach. I don't think I remember anything he said. I was too busy keeping my head down trying to hide my embarrassment. All my friends laughed and pointed at me, except Louise. Louise and I were supposed to go to a game the next day, and I think she knew that something would change in our circle. And they have changed. Over the next few weeks, several guys from the football and basketball teams tried to play for Maria and were rejected, sometimes frustratingly. She was offered to try out for a cheerleading team, but she publicly refused. "I'm nowhere near coordinated or athletic enough for something like that," she said, laughing. "Do you know how awkward it would be for me to jump into the air like that and let the wrong people see my panties, or worse, what if I wasn't wearing them? Thank you, but I'll just watch from the podium." This puzzled many people who saw her last weekend. We had some rare warm fall weather, and I hosted a party by our pool. That day, Maria made almost perfect ski jumps, which was seen by everyone present, including a couple of fans. Maria seemed like a study in contradictions. My parents loved her. My father told me to make sure I didn't let her get away. My mom thought the same thing. Most of my guy friends told me how lucky I was. Half the girls loved her, and the other half hated her. Girls who were interested in my friends found her to be the sweetest girl in the world. We often met twice, and she did everything she could to help them in their search. But any girl, including Edith, Louise, and Maud, who so much as glanced sideways at me, discovered, as Ace had, that Maria could be a first-class bitch. And once you were on her list, it was impossible to get off it. Edith learned this the hard way. She's used to the way we've always done things. One day, she came to me at dinner and asked if anyone else had asked me to the Sadie Hawkins dance. No one did, and it seemed as if the air had been let out of the room all at once. I was about to say that no one did this when Maria answered for me in a voice as cold as ice and hard as broken glass. "Yes, I did it," she said, and in my opinion, she was lying. "But Edith, I don't quite understand you. Since I've been here, I've always thought of you as a friend. I mean, we talk all the time, we communicate, but you still go and try to stab me in the back." Edith looked puzzled. For most of our lives, we were always a group of friends who all hung out. "HM," she said, "you're trying to embarrass me in front of everyone here by asking my boyfriend to go to the dance with you while I'm sitting here," Maria said. "I didn't know you too," Edith began. "How could you not know?" asked Maria. "Are you taking steroids?" "Well, we all meet each other from time to time," Edith began, "and I haven't done anything with Wayne in a long time, and now you know why," Maria spat, grabbing my hand. "Wayne and I are going to dance together and more," she said. Not only did she cause a stir at school, but she never let poor Edith off the hook. The following year, Edith was excluded, by accident of course, from more parties and picnics than she was invited to. Edith's invitations were often printed incorrectly, like the time Edith's invitation to a formal dinner said, "costume party." Poor Edith showed up in a clown costume while everyone else was dressed to the nines. I blamed myself for this, but I was helpless. I loved Maria so much that I could not refuse her anything. During my senior year, things got even worse. That year, we had to choose our classes, and she made sure we had the same schedule. She even took over an auto shop. We were together from the very morning until I took her home in the evening. We were both accepted into several of the same colleges, and she had just shared her latest idea with me. During the summer, we worked and raised money to rent an apartment on campus. My parents liked this idea. Although I didn't have to worry about paying for college, my father wanted me to learn to be responsible, so he liked the idea of me working. This, of course, was another feather in Mary's cap. My father gave us both jobs for the summer. Many of my friends were very jealous of me. I was on cloud nine. Maria explained to me why we needed an apartment and not to live in a hostel. We were both new to sexual experience, but she explained that once we went to college, we would fix that, and we moved into our own apartment. I thought about the two of us many times during the 2 years we were together. Maria always claimed that she simply fell in love with me when she first saw me. It took me a couple of minutes longer, but I saw it because I felt the same way about her. Some of my friends thought it was because I would become rich, but Maria was crazy about me before she even knew my family had money. I never had to worry about it anyway because none of it ever happened. We didn't move into the apartment and lived happily ever after. Less than 2 weeks before we graduated from school, Mary's paternal grandmother died. Her family traveled back to their home state for the funeral. Maria's father was very upset about her mother's death. After the funeral, he drank too much. He still thought it would be okay for him to ride the first leg of the long journey home. Drunk and tired, he crossed the lane and was reunited with his mother in the afterlife. His wife and daughter went with him. The only surviving member of the family was Maria's older sister, who stayed at home because she had a job that she could not leave. Maria fought for her life for almost a week, but never regained consciousness. Her injuries were too terrible, and the doctors said it was a miracle that she was able to hold off the Grim Reaper for so long. When she finally gave in, it was like a piece of my heart had been ripped out. I spent the summer in my room depressed. I couldn't understand how fate could be so cruel. How is it that life took me to heights I never expected or achieved, only to shatter my spirit on hard, sharp rocks without explanation? By the time I was able to function again, it was too late to find a place in a hostel. My father wasn't even sure I was ready to go to school yet, but I went. I ended up renting an apartment on my own because I couldn't get into the hostel. My first few weeks of college were terrible. All through high school, I hung out with the crowd. I had a few friends who went to the same college as me, but it was different. They didn't know how to approach me, and I was still depressed. Depression isn't really a strong enough term for it. Every day, I walked around dressed all in black. I wore a black shirt, black trousers, and a long black coat everywhere. If I was outside, I also wore black sunglasses. Now that I think about it, I must have single-handedly invented the Gothic movement. It finally took one guy to start pulling me out of my depression. No, I didn't change my orientation. He was my old friend. Ace Frehley didn't do very well in college. He came to school on a football scholarship and never made the transition from the high school game to the faster, more brutal college game. He was a second stringer at the time and was in increasing danger of losing his scholarship. At the same time, hanging out with the cool kids like he did in high school doesn't help him in his studies. Professors expected their assignments to be turned in and turned them in on time. Ace was losing on two fronts. Ace and Ada were looking for some kind of relationship when they both ended up at our current school. Jack joined the army, like his father and grandfather, and left Ada. Ada, as beautiful as she was, had too much trouble in her classes to have time to go to cheerleading in college, so she focused on her studies. Ace didn't like this, and they started fighting. I later learned that they had other problems as well. They had a few personality issues and were probably just not right for each other. They clung to each other because they both needed the comfort that familiarity can bring in a new situation. They both went from being big fish in the school pond to being small, almost nameless fish in the ocean of college. This is often an easier transition for people who were less popular than the school elite. At least there I was safe in my depression. I wrapped myself in a warm cocoon of loneliness, only to have it shattered one afternoon by the sound of Ace and Ada yelling at each other. The audience seemed to smile slightly and walked past them. Ace reached out to hit her, and before I knew it, I was moving. "Ace, what are you doing?" I asked. "The bitch gets on my nerves," he muttered. He was clearly drunk. "Dude, there's no reason to hit a girl," I said. "And even if it was the guy you were going to hit, there are too many people here. You may be kicked off the team. You're also drunk. If your coach finds out about this, you will leave teams." "You're right, Wayne," he said. "This bitch is not worth it. I'm going to class." "Ace, if you come to class and your professor smells your breath, you are history. Go back to the dorm and email him that you were sick and couldn't make it to class. Ask him to give you tasks. Then just sleep it off," I said. He nodded his head, drunkenly hugged me, and just walked away. Ada just stood there the whole time. She looked at me with her big blue eyes, ready to cry. He was going to hit me. Again, she said. I didn't know how to react to this. I didn't know what to tell her either, so I just stood there too. The next thing I know, she just hugged me and started crying. I know it makes me sound like an asshole, but she smelled really good, and she felt even better. In my case, it was even worse because Maria and I never consummated our relationship. I was 19 and still hadn't been with a woman, and controlling my impulses was experimental at best. "Wayne, thank you," she said. She looked at me strangely. She almost didn't seem to know what to say. "Wayne, we've known each other for a long time," she said, "and I wanted to tell you how sorry I am about your girlfriend, but we never really talked to each other, so I didn't know what to say." "Thank you," I said. "I'm kind of out of my mind. For 2 years, we just—" "I don't think this is the right time to tell you this," she said. "But do you remember the first day she came to our high school?" "I remember," I said. "That was the first time you noticed me." "It really wasn't the first time I noticed you," she said. "It was the first time I was close enough to you to see what kind of person you were. You really diffused this situation and made sure everyone could walk away with their pride. I wanted to talk to you after this, but, what?" I asked. I was really intrigued. "You know, Maria," she said quietly. "Well, it wasn't just Maria," I said. "You dated Jack too." "No," she said. "This is different." "How is this different?" I asked. "Well, if I dated someone else, Jack wouldn't be happy," she began. "But as long as I was honest with him, everything would be fine. Jack was a pretty good guy. But Maria, yeah." "What do you mean?" I asked. She looked at me and smiled. "You really don't know, do you?" she asked. "You don't remember Edith?" I shrugged. "Wayne, from the first day she walked into school, Maria made it clear to everyone that you were hers. She didn't want to be popular. She didn't want to be a cheerleader. She wasn't interested in classes or clubs. You were her everything. I thought your way of spending time in high school and dating whoever you wanted was wonderful. You were just a group of friends who hung out with each other freely when we were too young to get seriously attached. This way you could really get to know people and understand what you really need in a relationship and what you don't need. It was different for my circle because athletes are so competitive and possessive. Cheerleaders are the same. There's this hierarchy. The head cheerleader dates the quarterback or the starting center, and no one else is suitable. But then, when Maria came to our school, your group also changed. Everyone else in your group continued to date whoever they wanted, but you and Maria became a couple, and any girl who tried to date you ended up on her blacklist. The thing is, she was really cruel about it. It wasn't enough for her to just show that you belonged to her. Once someone got on her list, there was no turning back. I wasn't brave enough to try, and she didn't care who it was. Remember how Ace tried to come to your table on the first day? I admit he was an ass with his "I'll go and bring her to our table" thing, but she read him like an open book and started humiliating him. She did this on purpose. Remember her words about steroids that reduce the brain and manhood. If you hadn't intervened, who knows what could have happened. Remember when we asked her about being a cheerleader? Everyone was talking about how she did those jumps in your pool. She would be a great cheerleader, but she resisted anything that could separate the two of you. This is bad, I asked. Perhaps not, she said, but perhaps it would be beneficial for both of you to experience a relationship with someone else. I think, I said. All I know is that I miss her. It feels like a piece of my heart has disappeared without her. Wayne, I know this sounds terrible, but I mean it sincerely, she began. You have other friends if you need someone to talk to. I know, I said, but it's easier to sit in your apartment and grieve or mope, whatever you call it. Then I noticed that she was looking at me with wide eyes. Okay, what did I do now? I asked. Wayne, do you have an apartment? She asked. Yeah, I couldn't get into the dorm at the last minute, I said. Wayne, do you realize how crowded the dorms are? She asked. In my room, there are 4 girls in a space designed for 2. Can you imagine how noisy and chaotic it is there? I can barely find a place or time to study. I guess I got really lucky, I said. Wayne, you have a lot of life ahead of you, she said. Try to enjoy it. If Mary really loved you, even half as much as you loved her, she would want you to continue to live for both of you. I nodded and waved goodbye to her as I headed to my class, which I was already late for. About a day after this conversation, things started to change. I was sitting on the couch in front of the fireplace, reading a chapter for one of my classes. I had a bowl of popcorn and a cold beer. I heard a knock on the door and went to open it. When I opened the door, Ada was standing there and looking at me. I was thinking, she said, smiling. I thought you were a cheerleader, I said. Wow, a cheerleader and a member of the debate club. Great combination. No, she said. I mean, I was trying to decide if you were an asshole or just out of practice. I looked at her like she was crazy, and she started talking again. There's a lot of your friends from high school here, she continued. So I asked them about you. Each of them thinks you're a good guy. They said that even though you are quite rich, you are a normal guy. Most of them also think you are a nice person. That's why I decided that you're just out of practice. What exactly do I have no practice in? I asked. In communication with women, she said, entering my apartment. I mean, you dated a few in your younger years, but the last 2 that were really the most important, you were in a relationship, she said. So you have no practice in understanding the signals that women give. No, I'm not without practice, I said. I just never learned to do it. So how did you know when Maria wanted something? She asked. That was easy, I smiled. We didn't play such games. If she wanted something, she just said it. Well, yesterday I hinted that you were lucky to have such space to yourself, she said. She turned around, letting me see her impressive figure. It must be admitted that from the point of view of purely physical beauty, Ada was much more beautiful and better built than Mary. Of course, this was before I saw her. This apartment is great. I think I expected you to say something like, well, if you ever need a place to study, Ada, she said, trying to imitate my voice. She looked into my eyes. But you didn't invite me, she said. You didn't even tell me where you live. Sorry, I said. Maybe I'm really out of practice. And it's not just talking to women, it's called politeness. It's okay, she said. I'm here now. She looked at the fireplace, the popcorn, and my half-drunk beer. What are you doing? She asked. I picked up my book. I need to read 3 chapters before class the day after tomorrow. I read this evening, and tomorrow I will answer the questions at the end of the chapter. She looked around. You were sitting on the couch, right? She asked. I nodded. I don't want to bother you, so I'll sit in the chair, she grinned. I love beer too. That evening was not what I expected. We hardly spoke. Ada read her chapter, and I read mine. Except for a few moments when our eyes met, we could be in different buildings. When 9:30 arrived, she reached over and thanked me for the opportunity to use the room. I thought your dorm had an 11 curfew, I asked curiously. I had to take 3 buses to get here, she smiled, and I don't want to be alone on the street late at night. I put on my jacket and said I would take her home. She simply smiled and nodded her head. "Okay," she said. "Your friends were right. You're a really good guy." Ada did not back down. The next evening she came again. She knocked on the door and smiled at me. Can I take my seat again?" she asked. I nodded, and she hesitated, not immediately entering. "There is one small matter," she said. She turned around and nudged another girl into the light. The girl was slimmer and taller than Ada. She wore glasses and looked very studious. "This is Heather," said Ada. "She lives in a dorm next to mine. She can't study there either, and she's in pre-med. The good news is that she has a car, so you won't have to get up to drive me home." Heather said almost nothing. Ada took her place in the chair and looked at me. "Where is the fire?" she asked. I lit a fire and served her beer. Heather opted for juice and looked around the room. I was sitting with my feet up on the couch, and she just sat on the other end, and the three of us started studying. The couch was long, but not so long that Heather and I wouldn't touch each other's legs. Several times our legs touched and our eyes met. After some time, Ada noticed this and began to watch us. Before they left, they both thanked me. Heather grabbed my hand and shook it, smiling at me. "I was able to read so much," she said. "I could never do this in the hostel." I went home over the weekend, but on Monday they returned to study again. The situation between them became tense. The first thing I noticed was that Ada gave up her chair to the sofa. Heather didn't seem happy about this, but became immersed in her book. This time I couldn't concentrate. All I thought about was Ada, her soft skin and wonderful smell. She looked at me several times and smiled. I was so busy trying to look at her through a book, I hadn't read that I missed all the subtle signs. Over the course of a few hours into the study session, Heather and I accidentally touched each other several times. Ada slowly moved her legs closer to mine, and, when they touched, did not remove them. The next evening, Ada came alone. "Heather doesn't need to study?" I asked. She shrugged and entered. "You don't have to take me home," she said. "I can take the bus." "Ada, taking you home is not a problem," I said. "I would much rather take you than leave you running around alone at night. Plus, it's very cold outside." She smiled at this and put her books down. She had another bag, and she went into my small kitchen and started looking through the cabinets. Eventually, she found the plates and put two down. She looked at the stove and finally decided to do without it. She put the bowl in the microwave and called me. "I just thought it would be nice to have something to eat before I started studying," she said. "Even in college, we can't live on microwave popcorn and beer." After dinner, she surprised me again. I expected that when Heather was gone, we would go back to our previous arrangement. I took my usual place on the sofa, and she crawled through me to her place. We started reading, but made eye contact every few minutes. Every time our eyes met, she smiled. "How's Ace?" I asked. "Okay, I think," she said. "I saw him a few days ago." "That's good," I said. "Why is it good?" she asked. "It just sounds like you got it all sorted," I said, turning back to the book. She pushed my book aside and looked at me. "Wayne, Ace, and I are no longer together," she said. "Oh, sorry," I said. "Why?" she asked. "Well, it's never good when people break up," I said nervously. "You didn't seem bothered," she said, smiling. "What?" I said. I just didn't understand her point of view. "Wayne, I wouldn't come to you to study almost every night if Ace and I were still together. I don't care what people think, but I'm not that kind of girl." She then picked up her book and began to read. I could see her smiling and looking at me out of the corner of my eye. Looks like she sent me some kind of signal. Later that evening, when it was time to take her home, she started talking again. "Wayne, are you going home this weekend?" she asked. "I haven't decided yet," I said. "Why?" "Just wondering," she said. I started the car, and she bit her lip. I could see that she wanted to know something. "Speak, Ada," I said. "We are friends. You can ask me. The worst I can say is no, and since you seem to be my only friend besides Heather, of course I'll probably agree." "Well, if you're going home, I thought I might as well go too." And if you're not going home this weekend, I'd like to go to the movies with you or something. I turned back to the road. Is the thought of going to the movies with me that bad? She asked. You said that we are friends. Don't be stupid, I said. There are just a couple of things. Which things? She asked. Well, you're like some kind of goddess. Why are you? I began. Don't start this shit, she said. I am human. If I had been so cool, Jack wouldn't have joined the army. Do you know what he said to me after all the time we were together? Do you know what he said after that? I pulled over to the side of the road and looked at her. Are you sure we should be discussing this? I asked. Of course, she said. He said, and I quote, okay. She looked at me, and I could see tears in the corners of her eyes. He called me the next day to tell me he was leaving. He wanted to get to the base early to find out the layout and where everything was. Apparently, officer training is very competitive. Do you know what he told me before he left? I was expecting a long, moving speech about what we meant to each other after all those years of being together in high school, or some sensitive words to compensate for his reaction to a precious gift that I was already beginning to regret. He said, and again I quote, well, bye. What a fucking goddess, she said. I hugged her, and she continued. And Ace, he's much worse. The first day I came here, he just came up to me and said, Jack is in the army now. I think we're together now. I saw us as friends, but he seemed to think he inherited me. And by got it, he seemed to mean that we should now have all the privileges of the relationship. He even told me that he knew I had sex with Jack. Jack seemed to talk about it more to him than to me. I feel like I'm some kind of second-hand commodity because Ace never treated me like I meant anything to him. I think you saw it, and you need to understand something, Wayne. That look I gave you in high school when you told me I first noticed you. If Maria hadn't jumped on you, I would have done a lot more than just notice. What I noticed was a person who risked being in a bad situation himself in order to provide a way out of a bad situation for two other people. Sure, you may have been trying to calm Maria down, but you also gave Ace a way out. Because after the comments she made, he would probably hit her and get expelled from school. Or you and him could fight over it. But you remained calm and everyone left with dignity. I have never forgotten this. But the right moment never came to talk to you. She watched you like a hawk. And that's another reason why it's probably not a good idea, I said. Wayne, I hate to say it, but you have to move on. She would like you to continue living, she said. So, as a friend, let's go to the movies. And off we went. Going to the cinema was just the beginning. Soon we started spending all our free time together. Ada was a very honest woman, so she told me what really happened to Heather. After she saw Heather and I touching legs on the couch, Ada simply stopped inviting her. She also did not invite her other friends who wanted to study. Studying together was still one of our favorite things to do, and Ada would often bring food to cook for us. The next turning point for us came right after Thanksgiving. We went home for the holiday and met each other's families. My mom and dad liked Ada, especially my dad. I think they saw more in our relationship than there actually was. When I tried to explain to my mom that we were just friends, she looked at me like I was mentally retarded. I let your father think the same thing, she said. Ada's parents came to the same conclusion. They acted as if I was already their son-in-law or something like that. When we went back to school after Thanksgiving, everything sped up for us. We often walked if we weren't studying, and when we went somewhere, we always snuggled close to each other. The biggest change came one night when it started snowing. We were expecting a snowstorm. Storm warnings were posted everywhere. Ada asked me to pick her up so she could come to me and study. I reminded her about the storm warnings, and she said she was sure they were wrong. She said meteorologists don't know their job. I looked out the window when it started snowing, and she told me it would only snow lightly. She lit the fireplace, and we settled into our couch with popcorn and Dos Equis. A couple of hours later, when it was time to take her home, there was no light snow outside. We found ourselves in near blizzard conditions, and the National Weather Service was advising people to stay off the roads. Our school was canceled the next day, and I couldn't take Ada back to her dorm. She just smiled at me and said, "Guess I'll have to stay here." Have you ever seen one of those Disney movies where the cartoon wolf has to look after the sheep? That's how I felt. I was very worried, but Ada was absolutely calm. "Wayne, everything will be fine," she said. "Give me one of your t-shirts, or better yet, a sweatshirt to sleep on. You can just give me a pillow and a blanket, and I'll sleep here on our couch. I'll put fresh sheets on the bed, and you can sleep there," I said. "No, Wayne, I don't want to force you out of your bed," she insisted, so I gave in. "It'll be like a sleepover," she said. We watched an old film on TV. Ada loved old films. The movie we watched was called The Girl Can't Help It. Two things struck me. Firstly, Ada looked a lot like Jane Mansfield. They both had dazzling blonde hair and incredible smiles. They both had large breasts and buttocks. Secondly, like Jane's character in the film, Ada seemed completely different from what people perceived her to be. It was a late movie, and sitting there on the couch with Ada, wearing only my sweatshirt and panties, I was excited as hell. For the rest of the movie, she leaned against me and fell asleep. I carefully placed a pillow under her head and covered her. She looked so beautiful. Her legs peeking out from under her sweatshirt were so smooth and sexy. Her breasts were amazing, and her lips were just begging to be kissed. When I leaned towards her, it was so difficult for me not to kiss those lips. She twitched in her sleep, and her lips seemed to pout, as if she was waiting for my kiss. I covered her more tightly with a blanket and went to bed. I stopped and looked out the window, seeing that the entire street was covered with a thick layer of snow. It will take some time just to dig out the car, let alone start it. It's good that we had food. We may be here for a long time, and the snow was still growing outside the window. I settled into bed and began to dream about unclean things. I woke up in the middle of the night. Then my eyes opened wide when I felt someone nearby. Ada snuggled up to me in my bed. I didn't say a word. I just enjoyed it. I didn't move or try to take advantage of the situation. I just inhaled her scent and enjoyed the closeness. A few hours later, I woke up again to a different smell. I was sure it was the smell of bacon. Ada was nowhere to be found. I got up and went to the kitchen. I waved to her, and she waved back. I realized that something was wrong. She wasn't as happy as the night before. She placed 2 plates on the table and sat down opposite me. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. "Good morning," she echoed, without much enthusiasm. We looked at each other and almost simultaneously expressed our thoughts. "Is there something wrong?" I asked. "You don't love me, do you?" she asked a split second later. I looked at her as if she had gone crazy. "Why do you think so?" I asked. "Wayne, last night was planned," she said. "It's no coincidence that I ended up here. I lied about the weather. I knew there was going to be a big storm. I packed my makeup, my toothbrush, and a change of underwear. I even have some more clothes in your car." "Then why did you have to sleep in one of my sweatshirts?" I asked. "I didn't think I'd be in it for long," she blurted out. "Last night, lying on your couch, was the most romantic evening of my life. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Wayne, why didn't you kiss me?" My eyes got even bigger. "When you covered me, I was awake. I saw the way you looked at me. You wanted to kiss me. It was a magical moment. But you missed it." I started. "Wayne, I'm half naked," she said. "I went to bed with you. You missed that too. You clearly don't love me." "Ada, that's not the point," I said. "I told you that I'm not very good at all these games. I don't know the codes or the signals. And you're right, when I looked at you last night, I really wanted to kiss you." "Let me guess," she said sharply. "You thought you'd cheat on Maria, right?" "No, I said, looking into her eyes. "I didn't want to take advantage of you. From what you told me about Ace and Jack, I didn't want to be next on the list." "My luck continues," she sighed. "Wayne, while we're on the subject, there's something you need to know. Yes, you're right. Jack was an ass. But it was partly my fault. It was prom, after all, And I guess I just went to that because almost everyone has sex for the first time after graduation. You're 18, you're an adult, and you're entering the real world. I was curious about sex and Jack didn't hurt me. I just let it happen. It wasn't what I dreamed it would be. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't special, it just happened. Then Ace came along and again I just went for it. We were kind of a couple, even if it was by default, and he at least kept the losers away from me. We had sex because he wanted to, and I guess it was just expected. But then I started hanging out with this really nice guy who obviously has no brains. He treats me better than anyone in my life except my parents. He spends time with me and does things for me. So I decided that this time maybe this is what I want too. But he doesn't take steps, but it doesn't happen. I invited him on a date myself. My eyes got even bigger. Guess what? She continued. We started dating. We stay home a lot too. Wayne, there are nights when I stay at his apartment, making out with him, and I just want to jump on him and start kissing him. But he doesn't do anything. I saw there was going to be a big storm, and I imagined us being locked in and spending the night together. We ended up snuggling on his couch, watching one of my favorite old movies. He still doesn't make any move, so that I decide he just doesn't want me. I said nothing. Wayne, you said you don't know the signals, she continued. A girl walks around your apartment in just panties and a t-shirt. She wants you. She hides under the covers, cuddling up to you. She wants you. She gets into bed with you and turns to you. She wants you so bad. Oh, I said. Do you see how lucky I am? She said. The one guy I really want to do something to me doesn't. I gently reached out to her face and stroked her sides. I gently pulled her across the table towards me and kissed her. The plate of bacon fell off the table. I looked at her. Forget the bacon. I'll make more, she said. She grabbed my hand and pulled me into the living room. Light the fire, honey, she said. It's going to be special. I lit the fireplace and saw how the flames began to lick the artificial wood. The room acquired a special glow from the light of a real fire. I took the handful of crystals I kept there from behind the fireplace and threw them into the fire. The flame changed color, and the light also changed. I turned to Ada just in time to see her lift my sweatshirt over her head. I knew her body was amazing, but I was stunned. Some women look better dressed. When you see such women, it seems that their shirts or blouses make their breasts appear larger than they actually are, or more proportional. Bras make their breasts look less saggy, or pants and belts tighten their waist or flatten their hips. Ada was even more beautiful naked. I just stood there looking at her, and she smiled. Why am I the only one under the covers? She asked, holding it open. Wayne, I'm on the pills, she said. And I made Ace use protection. I'm sorry to have to ask you, but who else were you with besides Maria? No one, I said shyly. Who else was there? She asked. No one, I said. All her questions were starting to kill the mood, and it seemed like she realized it. Wayne, who other than Maria have you slept with? She asked softly. Ada, I've never done this, I said. Maria and I never. Am I your first? She asked. I nodded. That's great, honey, she said. There's nothing to be shy about. Let me do everything. We made love. We lay in each other's arms for a long time by the fireplace. She turned away from me, and for some reason I felt that something was wrong. What happened, AI? I asked. Did I do something wrong? I asked. I just feel like I wasted my first time, she said. In a perfect world, this would have been my first time. It was so beautiful. I feel so radiant and content. We are not. We live in a perfect world, I said. And don't you think one of us needed to know what to do? She smiled and lifted her head from my chest. You're just being stupid, she said. And suddenly Ada slapped me in the face. Bastard, she blurted out. I was confused. What? I asked. We could do this for weeks, she said, laying her beautiful head back on my chest. We spent the rest of the day and most of the next figuring out what we liked and didn't like. We were young and healthy, and we read a lot. We experimented and tried everything. If we liked it, we added it to our arsenal. If not, then they simply didn't do it anymore. We also turned down anything involving more than two people or anyone other than the two of us. Ada was a beautiful woman, and many women wanted to try her too. She was never even seduced, and neither was I. Over the next few years, we became closer and closer. As I said, we did not live in an ideal world. We had our problems. On my part, it seemed that despite how happy we were, every few months I would become depressed because of Maria. Sometimes I felt like I was cheating on her, and other times I felt like it was my fault that she died. If I had insisted that she stay with me instead of going with her family, she, like her sister, would still be alive. We had problems on her side too. First of all, she was fanatically jealous. And secondly, as soon as we got together and admitted our feelings for each other, she changed. I can almost pinpoint the day. The first Valentine's Day we spent together, when I told her I loved her, she became a different person. This didn't mean she stopped being jealous. This meant that she understood that we belonged to each other and that no one would ever separate us. So she didn't worry about other women anymore. She just bloomed overnight. For a beautiful woman like Ada, this is a problem. Before this, she wore very conservative clothes and walked with a very reserved gait. After that, Ada simply forgot about everything except how happy we were. She walked with more confidence and swayed those amazing hips more. She wore what she thought of her. I think I was excited because we were both insatiable for sex. She didn't care about anyone but us, but other men definitely noticed her. She went from a beautiful ice queen that men just knew they had no chance at to some sort of fertility goddess that everyone wanted to try overnight. Ace, who was in his senior year at school, started telling everyone that he slept with her and left her. I ended up having to talk to an old friend to stop it. I really felt sorry for Ace. He lost his scholarship, lost his spot on the team, and lost Ada all in 1 year. One problem for us was telling our parents that we were living together. We pictured it in our minds when we were home freshman year and kept putting it off. Ultimately, we decided that we would let them know before returning to school in the fall. In the end, it turned out to be insignificant. Of course, my parents loved her and just told me to be careful, but her parents were the ones we were worried about. When I spoke to her father, I prepared all the words I wanted to say as we sat down in front of him. Sir, I began, I have to tell you something. Yes, I know, he said. She's pregnant. And, actually, Dad, I'm not pregnant, she laughed. We were just going to tell you that I would be living with Wayne instead of the dorm. He looked at us strangely. You mean like it was half of last year, he said. I thought everyone already knew that. It didn't bother me when they returned half the money I sent for living expenses. Paying just for tuition is great, honey. I still need to save for your brother's school when he will start in a year. Besides, everyone who looks at you two can tell that you will end up together. And Wayne is a good guy, so I never minded it. We looked at him and just smiled. Wayne, I've never seen this girl so happy in her life. But it was funny watching you two all summer. Her mom and I sat and laughed at you on the porch when you delivered her home. You sat on this rusty, creaky swing and hugged each other. It was so cheesy. You told her you loved her, and she told you that she misses sleeping in your arms. My wife and I have acted out this scene several times. It was so cheesy. You two are made for each other. Fast forward to now forward 2 years, and we both received our diplomas and graduated. We got married and found work. We both ended up working at my company. I spent the first 2 years of our marriage following my father, preparing to take over leadership. Ada applied and got a job in our marketing department. I didn't help her get settled. She also dressed very modestly and did not try to exploit her beauty. She got the job based on her merits and skills. However, once she got settled, she had no problem having long lunches with her boss on a regular basis. I loved my life and my wife. Our life was perfect until fate decided to ruin everything for us. A few weeks before Halloween, I noticed something was wrong. Ada and I began to quarrel often. She was changing right before my eyes. Her usual calm and reserved personality seemed to have disappeared. She became demanding and confrontational. Our usual active sex life began to fade away. I couldn't understand why this was happening. More and more often, I found myself in the office, hiding from our problems. She started staying at work late, and I was sure she was having an affair. The last straw was that one night she came home drunk without a skirt or panties. She was wearing a long coat, almost completely nude. She took a shower and then went to bed. I refused to sleep with her. Our house had 6 bedrooms. I found another one. The next morning, I told her I wanted a divorce. I told her I knew she was cheating on me and I wouldn't tolerate it. She said I could get a divorce if I wanted, but she will pick up all my money. We didn't have a prenuptial agreement, so there was a very high chance that she would do it. My lawyer told me that the only way I could avoid this was if I had proof of the affair. Ada seemed to grin at me and just glared at me the rest of the time. When I looked at her, I saw only sadness in her eyes. Sadness and pain were deeply etched on her face, as if she wasn't the one doing the wrong thing. Maybe she was drugged with something or blackmailed. Deep down, I had a suspicion that something was causing her to behave this way, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Everyone was sure that Ada loved me madly. I took refuge in his office to cope with depression over the collapse of our marriage. Ada. My ideal life was crumbling before my eyes. I hoped Wayne would understand what I wanted. One look at my body should have told him what it was meant for. We were moving further and further away from each other. He had to pull his head out of his ass and realize what he was about to lose. At first, I hoped that by refusing him sex, he would come to his senses. But it only hurt me too, also because I couldn't do it. I needed to find another way. At first, I thought it would be easy, but he just didn't care. In the last 3 weeks, since that woman visited him at work, he had changed. I watched him several times in his office and saw something I couldn't believe. I had no idea how to deal with this. I took the day off and went to see a specialist. She advised me to intensify what I was doing because it might help me wake him up. She also gave me something that I doubt will help. For the money I gave her, it should have been gold-plated. I met Ace, who had just returned to town. Ace acted completely differently than he had in high school and college. He was attentive. He was really kind to me. He complimented and told me how beautiful I am and always have been. When he said that Wayne didn't realize how lucky he was, things began to unfold chaotically. I think the last straw was when Ace brought me home drunk, and I kissed him in the door just as Wayne opened the door. Ace looked at him in horror and ran away. I almost fell into the house. Wayne went to his office. We were going to have a Halloween party that night, and a lot of people, including our families, were going to come. Wayne. I settled into a comfortable old leather chair in the office. I didn't turn on the computer. I opened the desk drawer with a key that only I had. I took out the diary. In the few weeks that I had it, this little book became my most prized possession. I still remember the day the woman came to my office to give it to me. She didn't have a record. She simply told my secretary that I would see her. My secretary, Joan, called me and said that a woman named Laura Hess wanted to talk to me. It took me a few minutes to realize who it was. Joan said the woman said it was about Mary. It gave me goosebumps despite the warm late summer day. All kinds of emotions rushed through me. I realized that Laura must be Maria's surviving sister. I felt a pang of guilt. I really should have contacted her years ago. I think after the accident, I was locked into my personal depression, and she was locked into hers due to the loss of her entire family. At the funeral, we hardly spoke to each other. Now, years later, when the emotions over our shared tragedy have subsided, perhaps we could talk. She walked into my spacious office and looked around. She smiled nervously. I got up from the table and approached her. "You should take this," she said. "I can't keep this in my house anymore. Please take it. She wants you to have it." I started to think she was crazy. It was grief that drove her crazy, or she was just crazy. She looked at me, and I was sure that something was wrong with her. I think if I shook her head, she would rattle. She thrust a tattered book into my hands, and a look of euphoria appeared on her face. I looked down and immediately recognized the book. I've seen her so many times it's crazy. Maria always wrote in it. The edges of the pages were both watery and charred. Part of the cover was burnt. This, this is Maria's diary, I exclaimed. She always wrote down all our plans and thoughts in it. My happiness and hers were almost equal. How much do you want for this? I asked. Hell, nothing, she said. She kept it with her until the end. Her eyes constantly scanned the room. It seemed that she was either afraid of something or looking for a way out. She wants you to have it. What? I thought. The woman then turned and walked away. She seemed calmer, almost normal, after completing her task. She even smiled on the threshold and said, "Now it's yours. My family will." Her words faded as she left. I didn't pay attention to her. I flipped through the pages, looking for familiar things and trying to find things I didn't know about. I knew that the last entries would be new to me, since she was far away from me. It was a chance to read the last thoughts and feelings of my first love. Somehow, I didn't think about my marriage to the woman I loved. All I could think about was Maria and her thoughts. Flipping through the tattered pages, I felt a tingling sensation in my hands. The door to my office closed on its own, and I felt something strange. It seemed like someone was watching me. I looked around, but didn't see anyone. For a second, I thought Ada was playing a joke on me. She's done this before. She would hide in my bathroom while I was out of the office, and then come out naked when I was alone. We locked the door and made love on the thick carpet in my office. An hour later, when we left my office, as if sorting out documents, several people in the reception area looked at us strangely. Joan, being the executive assistant she always was, pushed us back into the office. "Wayne, go out and tend to your employees," she ordered. "Ada, wait until they leave and then go home. And go down the back stairs to the parking lot." "Why?" AI asked. "Wayne needs a mirror in the office. Men don't notice anything," Joan said. "Your hair is a little messy. It looks like you just had sex. Your makeup is smeared. You have bite marks on your neck. They'll probably be gone by tomorrow, but right now you look like you've been bitten by a vampire." When the door opened, the whole room was having sex. "You are a beautiful woman, Ada," she said. "You have an amazing body, so men will always look at you from head to toe. Those things are noticeable. You also have that sparkling, I'm in love look. Everything about you says, I just had sex and I loved it. It's great for you, but it should be a place of work." When I recalled this incident, the atmosphere in the room seemed to become gloomy. It was as if the room was angry at me for thinking about sex with my wife. I realized that I was going crazy. I decided to take the day off and go home to read my diary. I will not violate anyone's personal space, as Mar. I died a long time ago. Perhaps reading her old thoughts will bring me joy and help me cope with my loss. I loved Ada with all my heart and soul, but there will always be a place in my heart for Mary. Usually, if I went home early, I would text Ada to join me, but that day, for some reason, it didn't feel right. I'll see her at home anyway. I came home and went to the office. I sat down at the table and started reading the diary. The more I read, the less I could put it down. I started to feel very strange, as if I was not alone. The air in front of me began to swirl, as if someone was there. When I read the thoughts and dreams written in the diary, I felt that Mary was with me again. I really needed better lighting in the office. Just reading this book for an hour made me tired. Not just my eyes, my whole body felt exhausted. Ada knocked on the door and entered. She had been in the office thousands of times. She even worked here, sometimes when she couldn't avoid taking work home. She looked around as if seeing the room for the first time. "Come on, honey," she said. "Let's have dinner. I missed you." Even as she said this, I felt something strange. It was like a cloud of pure hatred. It was as if someone in the room was very angry with Ada. She seemed to feel it too. "Let's get out of here," she said. "This room seems weird. Maybe we should paint it and change the furniture." I tried to get up, but I felt very weak. Ada noticed this and tried to help me get up. Maybe you should just go to bed and I'll get you something to eat. You probably have a cold or something, she said. The next day I came home again and read the diary. When I read it, I imagined how I felt when I was younger and Maria and I were together. I learned things about her and myself that I never knew. One of the first and most shocking things I learned was that not a single teacher asked Maria to ask me to show her around the school. She lied about it. Maria just walked into the classroom and saw me. When she looked at me, she immediately felt attracted to me. I completely understood this because I felt the same way about her. Thus, her statement that the teacher asked me to show her around the school was a fabrication. She just thought it would be a good way to get to know me, and it worked. I also learned that from the very first time she touched me, Maria considered me her property. In her mind, we were soul mates. From the diary, I learned that Maria believed that we were lovers in a past life and were destined to be together forever. Maria also believed that she had some kind of supernatural abilities. She mentioned several times in her diary that some of the women in her family had gifts. Only women received this gift, and only one in each generation. Usually this woman had red hair. Maria's aunt had the gift, but her mother did not. None of her cousins and sisters had the gift. Maria wrote about her ability to charm everyone with her touch. I wasn't sure if any of this was true. It sounded like a teenager's fantasy. But on the other hand, when she touched me, it really felt like magic. Perhaps she really had me under her spell. But at the same time, from reading the diary, I learned that there were many cases when Maria did not want to go somewhere or do something, but gave in because I wanted it. So if she kept me under a spell, I kept her under my spell to the same extent. Perhaps this is true love. Maybe it's just mutual fascination. Or perhaps love is the only true magic that exists. Our relationship, which I always considered very easy, was actually very difficult for Maria. She was constantly jealous of any woman who looked at me, even my friends. On the first day, she deliberately looked at Ada with anger because she noticed that she was looking at me with interest after the incident with Ace. Maria instantly knew that Ace wanted her. But he didn't want her as a woman. He wanted her as some kind of property or status symbol, and she didn't want that. So she immediately went on the attack and was pleasantly surprised when I intervened to defuse the situation. It confirmed her belief that we were meant to be together. I also learned that Maria was much more ready for us to have sex than I ever thought. Everything between us went according to her plan. When she died, still without having tried sex, she was already taking pills because she planned for our first night in our apartment to be our first intimate night. Perhaps the strangest thing I read in the diary was that she never wanted to go on that last trip with her family. She even complained about it and reminded her father that her sister should not go. My father thought she wanted to stay home to have sex with me. She told him that she still had never done it, and he snorted as if he didn't believe her. She suggested that her mother take her to the doctor the next day, and if she wasn't lying, she could stay home. Her father said that she would go because he said so, and it was not discussed. The next day, I came to see them off. We hugged each other with tears in our eyes, and her parents rolled their eyes. Jesus, her father said irritably, that doesn't mean you'll never see each other again. We'll be back in a few days. What will you do when you're older and married and he's away for work? I'll take her with me, I said. Her father rolled his eyes again and started the car. Her mom smiled at me and waved goodbye. The last time I saw her before. My last memory of Maria was her face pressed against the car window as they drove away. God, how I loved her. Even as that thought flashed through my mind, I swore I saw someone in the room. I only saw it out of the corner of my eye, but someone was there. I turned and looked around the room, but saw no one. Then I heard it. It was like someone was laughing at me. I sat back in the chair and wondered if I was going crazy. I spent the whole day thinking about the past. I wondered if I would ever get over Maria. In a sense, I've already done it. I loved Ada very much, or at least I did until that day. Then everything changed. You shouldn't be with that pompous woman of easy virtue. I heard the words as clearly as if someone was in the next room. She's cheating on you. I turned around and a translucent figure was standing or hovering next to me. I was shocked. I pulled back so quickly that I knocked over the heavy chair and ended up on the floor. I looked up and the figure was still there. When I looked at the figure, its face was recognizable, although not completely solid. It was Maria. She looked the same as she looked the last time I saw her. Years have passed. I was 26 years old, but she still looked 18. "Oh God," I screamed. "Stay there." I tried to make a cross using my index fingers. She smiled and moved towards me. "I'm not a vampire," she grinned. "Besides, I'm only here because we still feel the same way." "What? What? What do you mean?" I stuttered. "My soul cannot leave," she said seriously. "There are things that I didn't get to do while I was here. These things haunt my soul." When she looked at me, her face became clearer, but her body remained translucent. "Wayne, honey, it took me years to gain the strength to manifest so that you could see me. It takes a huge amount of energy," she said. "Wayne, I could always feel when you thought strongly about me, but I needed something to connect us again. Spirits sometimes become attached to objects. In my case, it was my diary. I worked for years to make my stupid sister give it to you. I ended up chasing her house. I knocked over several pieces of furniture and scared her children. But she didn't understand. I scared her husband so much that he wet himself. When she asked in desperation why this was happening to her, I wrote on the mirror in her bathroom, 'Give Mary's diary to Wayne.' The next day she found it all, but I did it for us. I was exhausted just watching her. At first, I thought the reason I didn't pass was because I didn't get to say goodbye to you and tell you how much I love you. But now that I'm here, I see it's something else," she said. "WW what?" I asked. "Wayne, I love you," she said. "I always have. Now I have to protect you from what you did." I did it," I asked. "Yes, honey," she said. "You shouldn't be with that prostitute. You should be with me. I already told you she's cheating on you. She doesn't love you, Wayne. Trust me. If she really loved you, I wouldn't be here. I would be happy that you found someone who makes you happy until we are reunited after your death." Maria's body began to flicker like a picture on an old television. "Wait," I said. "I can't stay," she said. "No energy. I'll be back tomorrow. Love you." Then she disappeared, and there was nothing left to prove she was ever there except the strange smell in the room. After some time, Ada came to pick me up for dinner. "Honey, you have a fever," she said. "Let me take you to bed." I could barely walk, and she half carried me up the stairs. She brought me soup in bed, took a shower, and lay down with me. "Ada, maybe you shouldn't be around me," I said. "We don't need both of us to get sick." "If you're sick, I want to be sick too," she said. "Besides, I promised you through thick and thin, through sickness and in health, remember?" My mind was in turmoil then. I had no idea that AI was deceiving me until Maria told me about it. Ada definitely didn't act like that. "Have you finished reading Maria's diary?" asked my wife. "No, there's still a lot left," I replied. "I'm missing some parts." I noticed that Ada's face changed then. Perhaps it was a hint that Maria gave, but I began to take a closer look at Ada. A couple of days later, she told me that she would be staying home from work, but she actually went out of town and didn't tell me why. In fact, when I asked her what she did that day, she didn't exactly lie, but she didn't tell the truth either. She left the city. A few days later, I checked her credit card receipts and learned that she had traveled to New Orleans. She flew to New Orleans, spent about an hour or two there, and came right back. It seemed to me that she flew to meet someone and then returned home and didn't tell me anything about it. My mind went haywire. Obviously, Maria was telling the truth. From the very beginning, I always wondered why someone like Ada would choose an ordinary guy like me. For the first few years of our relationship, I kept wondering when she would leave me. But this never happened. We got married and were together for 7 years. There you have it, the 7-year itch. Ada got bored with me, and now she had money and opportunities to do whatever she wanted, so she cheated on me. Deep inside me, I didn't want to believe it. She was so convincing. Maybe it wasn't like that. Maybe she's been cheating on me all this time, and I was too stupid to realize it. All those times we would go to parties or business events and guys would hit on her. Ada is a woman who always attracts a lot of attention. I'm not a troll, but I look normal. Maybe it was just the money and the promise of an easy life that made her choose me. It was this trip that made me pay closer attention to Ada. It was also the trip after which I decided to prepare my lawyers to file for divorce. They told me that without concrete evidence, I would lose the divorce. Ada couldn't get a share of the company, she couldn't get any of my shares, but she could get half of my assets outside the company, which would be a significant amount. What really shocked me was that she didn't want a divorce. She told me that she would fight it tooth and nail, and that if I did win in the end, she would still take every penny I had. My lawyers told me this is the 21st century. Many couples had open marriages and stayed together for children or financial reasons, while each of them led their own lives outside of the marriage. I realized I needed to come up with another plan. An open marriage just wasn't right for me. I was a monogamist, or so I told myself. I think even then I was lying to myself. This was part of my problem. I loved two women, one dead and the other alive. And in the fight for my heart, the dead one seemed to have the advantage. On the other hand, I seemed to retreat more and more into the study, and Ada showed more and more of her infidelity. The day of the Halloween party was the last straw. When she came home drunk with that idiot Ace, I couldn't take it anymore. I left her there so drunk that she could barely stand, but looked at me with the saddest look in her eyes. I think things went so badly for us that even she realized it. Maybe we could talk later and work something out. I would give her a reasonable amount of money and let her keep her job at the company. I just wanted. What did I want? On some deep level, I wanted to stay married to her. I loved Ada, but I just couldn't put up with her cheating. As soon as I sat down in my office, Maria appeared almost immediately. And almost immediately after her appearance, I began to feel tired. It was strange. I could wake up in the morning full of energy, but by the end of the day, I was always so exhausted that I felt almost dead. "You don't have to put up with her cheating, honey," Maria said. "She's not the one for you anyway." Maria reached into her bag of tricks and began her final session. She ran her ghostly hands over me, and I felt a tingling sensation. "We could be so good together," she said. "Tell me how, and I'll divorce Ada tomorrow," I said. I felt an immediate rush of guilt when I said that. "No, Wayne," she smiled. "Lately Maria has been getting stronger and stronger. In fact, her image was so strong at that moment that I could see her clearly, and her body was no longer transparent. It almost seemed hard. Her feet were also firmly on the floor. "We need her, honey," she said. "That bitch will never love you like I do, and she will never give you a divorce. She needs the money too much for that. But there is a way we can win. We have to be real fast, and it has to be tonight." "Why tonight?" I asked. "Because it's Halloween, silly," she said. "This is the night before All Saints' Day. It is the only night of the year when the veil between the real world and the spirit world is thinnest. If you really want to be with me, you can bring her to this room and put her diary in her hands. This will give me the opportunity to be with you. And I won't be trapped in the body of an 18-year-old. Think about it, Wayne. You and I will be together forever. I'd use these breasts and this ass to show you what I've always wanted." I nodded. My anger at Ada and the confusion I always felt when Mary was around combined to make me agree to do something I would never have done otherwise. "Wayne, it must be midnight," she said. "Trust me, you'll love it." A few hours later, the party was in full swing. Many of our friends, relatives, and business associates socialized and enjoyed themselves. Ada, as usual, was great. She wore a Supergirl costume that showed everyone how super she was. She was wearing a very strange necklace that didn't match the suit, but she looked amazing. Men walked around her all the time. She talked to them and flirted, but only when she knew I was looking at her. However, I noticed that when I wasn't looking at her, she looked sad. Maybe she was just trying to make me angry by showing me what she was doing. Maybe she only did it when I was looking, because she wanted to show me that she could do anything. Well, to hell with it, I thought. All my doubts about what Maria had planned disappeared. 5 minutes before midnight, I walked through the crowd. "Wayne, who or what are you supposed to be?" asked my mother-in-law. "Your suit is just a long coat. Are you supposed to be naked underneath? Are you a flasher? Are you going to take advantage of my daughter later?" I opened my coat and pulled out the samurai sword from underneath it. "I am Duncan MacLeod of Clan MacLeod," I said. "I'm a mountain man." Everyone around started laughing. "This has to be the most ridiculous costume I've ever seen," said Ted Richards. He worked in my sales department and was a good friend. "So what?" I joked. "My wife likes it." Ada looked up at me when I mentioned her. I walked through the crowd of men around her and took her hand. She smiled at me. She looked so hopeful. Then I realized that I was making a mistake. "Come back quickly, dear," said a stranger. And although Ada looked back at him and said that she did not know him, but I was her husband and she loved me, I got angry again. I led her through the crowd and we went into the office, locking the door behind us. People whispered and joked as we disappeared into the office. They thought they knew what would happen there, but they had no idea. "Wayne, she began. "Say Chach," I said, interrupting her. I pushed her into a chair and placed the diary on her lap. "Wayne, I love you so much," she said. And at that moment, I realized that I had made a mistake. But it was already too late. Maria appeared and Ada's eyes became huge. "You lying bitch," Maria hissed. "It's too late for you, especially tonight. True love wins after all." I don't know what happened next. Maria approached Ada, and screams began. I noticed that the necklace Ada was wearing was glowing. Ada's body began to vibrate as if she was having a seizure. And then thick, acrid, green smoke appeared, and everything became quiet. "Ada," I said, looking at her. She smiled and looked at me, and it was creepy. At that moment, I felt stronger than I had in weeks. "Try to guess," she said, smiling at me. Then she stood up and kissed me. "You and I are in bed tonight," she said. "How soon can we get rid of these people?" "Not soon," I said. "You must call me Ada," she said. God, how she walks with that body. It's like jelly on springs. I feel like I'm about to tip over forward, and only her huge ass keeps me from falling. This should have alerted me, but it didn't. Ada always thought her butt was too big. "Wayne, we'll have to stay together so you can tell me who all these damn people are. I haven't met most of them before. God, it feels good to feel your touch again. Never let me go," she said. "Maria, where is Ada?" I asked. She turned and looked at me angrily. "How should I know? Don't ever ask me about her again. All that matters is you and me. Why are you even asking about her? You love that fat-assed cow, don't you?" "Yes," I said sharply. "If she hadn't started cheating on me, I would still be with her now. Maria, Ada is a very good person, and over the past 7 years, if it weren't for her, I probably would have gone crazy after your death. To you. You also need to know that she was kind and loving and tolerated my depression about you from time to time. Not many women love enough to understand something like that. She loved me enough to know that I had a place in my heart for both of you and—" "Don't worry," she said. "I understand if you still have some love for her. I hope she's happy somewhere. I hope her spirit is gone." The strangest thing was that she smiled while saying all this. I couldn't understand why she was smiling when she said that someone I loved was gone. "Maria, there's something else you need to know," I said. "I love you very much, but I loved Ada just as much, and it was a different love. I see now that it was a more mature love. We may not have burned so brightly, but we burned. I wish I could understand where I made a mistake for her to cheat on me. And you should know that I and most guys really love that body of hers, so please don't do anything to ruin it." I took her hand and we went back to the party. As soon as the doors opened, people started smiling at us, and I started telling her who was who. The first crisis came when I warned her that her mother and father were coming towards us. Ada, you should be ashamed, her mother reproached. I can't believe you left a house full of people to go and do what you did in this room. Martha, we know what they did, her father said, and the way she meowed and screamed, they were doing it well. Ada would have blushed with embarrassment, but Mary in the body of Ada was not embarrassed. She simply grinned at her father and nodded her head. That was really, really good, Daddy, she said. We'll probably do this a lot. She then added, I mean, we do this all the time, but now we'll do more of it. I spent the rest of the night and into the morning answering questions for the spirit in my wife's body while we persuaded our guests to leave. When the last guest left a little after 2 o'clock in the morning, she grabbed my hand and practically dragged me upstairs. I've been waiting for this for weeks, she said. Another thing that should have alerted me was that she seemed to know the layout of our house. We walked into our bedroom, and she immediately started taking off her suit. She stood in front of me completely naked. I looked at the face I loved and felt a pang of guilt, but only a pang. Don't hurt me, she said. I've never done this. Then she came into my arms. The next morning, Maria snuggled up to me and snored softly. When she woke up and saw me looking at her, she smiled. Last night was worth 7 years of being dead, she said. Promise me we'll do this every night. Well, there are nights when we won't be able to do this, you know, I said. Nonsense, she said. Besides, there are ways to do it differently. Now I knew for sure that it was Maria. During the first week, we hardly left the house. But there were problems. Maria left this world as a high school student. She didn't go to college, didn't get an Ada degree. She couldn't even do approximately Ada's job. Besides, she could never pretend to know all the people Ada worked with. Some of these relationships have been developed over years and countless hours of working with people in different circumstances. Even if she could fake the job, she couldn't fake this relationship. Hell, I loved Ada and could barely tell her apart from Mary, but I truly believed that what was confusing me was my love for both women. And in the end, this became my undoing. You see, after missing and longing for Maria for many years, once I got her back, I found myself missing Ada now. I had 2 short years of dances and school activities with Maria. It was fun, but that's all. Over the course of 7 years, I built a life with Ada. And now that the fun was over, after a few short weeks with my high school sweetheart, I missed my wife terribly. In fact, one afternoon, I was thinking about what Ada had once said, and I found myself crying. I missed her so much. Maria found me in this state and was furious when she learned the reason. "Why are you crying, Wayne?" she asked. I just shook my head, and she looked at me and understood. "You're crying because of this woman of easy virtue, aren't you?" she screamed. "Stop it now. It's your problem. You just don't know what you want. But this time it's over. You're not getting her back. You're stuck with me, so deal with it." That's exactly how I felt stuck. The next day I returned to work and was in for a surprise. My secretary said I had an appointment. She said Ada organized it a few weeks ago. It was quite interesting. The door opened and Ace walked in. "What the hell are you doing here?" I growled. He looked at me as if I had hit him. "Wayne, we're old friends," he said. Did he really think I would ever be friends with the guy who slept with my wife? "After what happened between you and AI, how can we even be friends?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" he asked. Then his face changed. "Oh, you still don't know, huh?" "I don't know what?" I asked. "That you had an affair with my wife, and now you want to poke it at me." "No, dumbass," he said, standing up. "Funny, I always thought you were the smarter of the two of us. Call me when you pull your head out of your ass." "Wait, Ace," I said. "Maybe you should tell me what's going on." "Listen, Wayne," he said. "I've changed a lot since we last dated in college, but you probably don't know it yet. In high school, everyone liked you. You weren't a jock or anything, but you were a guy on whom everyone could rely no matter what. You got along with everyone. You were the organizer, but without you nothing would have been done. I, on the other hand, was an asshole. I was so confident in myself that I thought I could do anything. I also thought I deserved everything I wanted. I followed Maria that first day when she showed up, and she put me in my place. You saved the situation from getting worse. I think that's when everyone noticed how smooth you were. At the same time, you were someone you could trust. I don't know if you knew it, but from that day on, Ada always asked about you or looked at you. I think if you and Maria weren't so inseparable, she would have made a move towards you, even though good girls don't do that. Hell, she'd probably leave the king of the school, Jack, for you. Even he's tired of her asking about you all the time. Then we graduated and moved on. I became a terrible player in college. I was great in high school, but in college the game is faster and less forgiving, and I just couldn't adjust. It led to a lot of frustration on my part. I did things that I now really regret. Firstly, I just assumed that Ada was mine when all we were ever supposed to be was friends. I saw college as an extension of school, but it wasn't like that in me. Mind, with Jack gone, I was king of the hill and Ada was mine by default. Jack never really felt for Ada like she needed to, but she never felt for him either. Jack's whole life was focused on the army and then politics. Ada never fit into that. I don't even know why she went to college when all she ever wanted was a house and kids. Seeing her now as a big career woman, it's strange to me. Jack went to war and was killed on his first tour. I think he was too focused on being in the White House to watch road bombs. Anyway, I got angry about my inability to play in college and started taking it out on her. I'm really ashamed of that time, Wayne. I really got angry when she asked about you. Then you came and saved her. Up to a few weeks ago, we didn't see each other again. Yes, but then you made up for lost time, didn't you? I grinned. Again, he looked at me with madness in his eyes and shook his head. Wayne, nothing happened between me and Ada. I swear. It was just a game. She wanted to make you jealous so you would start paying attention to her again. She asked me to help, and I agreed, as long as she told me the truth when it's all over. She forgave me for the way I treated her in college, and I asked her for a job. He pulled out photographs from his wallet and showed that he had a lot of business over the past 7 years. There were photos of Ace with a rather nice but ordinary woman and photos of his 3 children. My wife Brenda and our children, he said proudly. I know she's not as beautiful as Ada to most people, but I love her so much it's crazy. I could tell he was telling the truth. Then what? I began. It was all for your own good, he said again. She said she needs to get you to get your head out of your ass. She said you're living in the past and spending all your time reading some book in your office instead of focusing on the life you have right in front of you. Trust me, there are a lot of guys who would give anything for a chance to be with her, but this woman loves you too much to ever cheat on you. Ace's words almost killed me. I ruined my life for a fantasy. Ace, you can get any job you want, I said. You can start tomorrow. I'll call HR and arrange it. Thank you, Wayne, he said. Wait until I tell my wife and children about this. Say hi to Ada for me. After Ace left the office, I locked the door and just started crying. I know big strong men don't do that, but I royally screwed up my life. I needed to pull myself together. Everything that has been done can be undone. There must be a way to bring Ada back. I left the office and took a long drive around the city in my new Mustang. The car had more than 500 horsepower and many custom options and functions. Driving has always helped me relax and focus on my problems. I drove into the park and thought about it. It didn't take me long to realize that I wanted Ada back. I wanted her more than I ever wanted Maria. And if Maria couldn't or wouldn't help me, I just didn't want her around me. Being around Maria made me feel like I was cheating on my wife. If it's the last thing I do, if it costs me the company and all the money I can raise, I'll get my wife back. There is nothing that cannot be undone. I was sure of it. I was also sure that Maria simply did not want to help me. I returned home several hours later than usual. Maria was waiting for me when I arrived. Where have you been? She asked. We need to discuss something. Mary, you can have whatever you want, I said. You are alive again, and you have my wife's body. You can have all my money. I can't give you company, since it should stay in the family. And I realized that I can't give you my heart either. She didn't start screaming or acting crazy like I thought she would. She just listened to me. Mary, I really loved you with all my heart. But I was a child then. I've grown up, and now I know what true love is, and that's not what I felt for you. I had it all this time, and I just let it slip away, I said. But she cheated on you, she spat. Don't ever call her that again, I said, standing up. And she never cheated on me. All she did was try to get me to pull my head out of my ass and realize what I had. In fact, I was the one who cheated on her with you. Although, since you, is it really cheating if it's with a ghost? You didn't cheat, idiot, she said. And she wasn't really a ghost. She was a succubus. She stalked her sister's family for years. Finally, she gave her sister that damn diary to give to you so she could move into our house. Once in our house, she made a connection with you through the book. She drained your energy and became stronger while you became weaker. Ouch, I said. It took you a long time to figure it out, genius, she said. But how? I asked. How did you get your body back? I never lost him, she smiled. It was me all this time. I was just pretending to be her to see if you really wanted her instead of me. Now you've had your chance with her, so in the future, hopefully you'll leave her in the past where she belongs. But you acted so much like her, I said. It was easy, she said. I've been watching her with you for years. All I had to do was be mad at everyone but you and never let you out of my sight. But all these things, I began. Listen, silly, she said. I love you. I always have. And before she came along, you and I had a pretty wild sex life. Then suddenly you rejected me to sleep with that redhead from hell. So yeah, I really needed it. I'll do literally anything for you, Wayne, and you really couldn't help it. She cast a spell on you too. No I said. You are the woman of my dreams. And don't forget it, she chuckled. So how are you? And where is she? I asked. I stopped by the office about a week after this all started, she said. I saw what you were doing, and I got angry. Then I saw her. Maybe it was my anger at that moment, or maybe it was because I love you so much and the danger to you allowed me to, but I saw her. I also noticed that she somehow sucks the life out of you. So I went to New Orleans to visit a gypsy woman who is an expert in this matter. She told me what Maria had become and told me how to protect myself from her. She told me that in most cases the succubus is content to simply feed on its victims until the victim dies, but very powerful succubi sometimes take over the bodies of someone very close to their victim. And say what you will about Maria. She loved you, Wayne. Even the gypsy realized that her spirit remained on earth because you had unfinished business with her. We realized that her unfinished business was to have sex with the man she loved. If you and she ever had busy sex, I would be lost. So the gypsy gave me a trap necklace and a spell to capture Mary's spirit. It worked. Instead of her spirit entering my body, it ended up in the necklace, and I pretended to be her. You have no idea how good it was to see you realize that you loved me, Wayne. I was always afraid of her. I was always sure that I was second in your heart. I was ready to pretend to be her for the rest of my life, if that would keep us together. Soon we will go to the gypsy and let her help the spirit of Mary leave, she said, smiling at me. Aw, I love you so much, I said. Please forgive me. I will never take you for granted again. No one in my life will ever come close to having even a piece of my heart. I always loved you, AI, but there was that little part of my heart that... Wayne, your heart is much bigger than you think, darling, and it's going to have to stretch a little. I looked at her and was puzzled. Can we talk about this in bed? I asked. At that moment, her face lit up, and I knew everything would be okay. Okay, she said, but it has to be gentle and loving until I get used to it. But I thought Maria never took over your body. Was there a period of time when you were both inside it? I asked. Funny you should mention Women's Day, she said. Because mine are really, really, really late. So I went to the doctor, and there's two of us here. But it's not me and your high school crush. It's me and your baby. I picked her up and carried her upstairs. This is how it should be, Wayne, she said, kissing me. Wayne, we need to start thinking about names. If it's a boy, we'll name him after my grandfather, she said. His name was Gumford. We'll call him Gummy for short. Well, if it's a girl, I began. We won't call her Maria, she spat. I laughed. I was thinking of naming her after your mother, I said. I like the name Penelope. We'll call her Penny for short. Over the next 2 years, we had two children, a girl and a boy, and we actually used those names. Our family flourished, and we loved each other very much. We all lived happily ever after, especially around Halloween when we were very popular. After all, what would Halloween be without tricks and treats and everything that goes with it, including Wayne dupes, eye drops, penny dupes, and especially gummy dupes? Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.